Betsperters, we are back again for another episode of the Byron Betsperts Golf DFS show for the Waste Management Phoenix Open down in typically sunny Arizona. Not so much this week, but we'll see all about that once we chat to our main man and weather guru to my left, aka Ron Kloss, PGA Splits 101. Through the aka there way too soon, but that's okay. Ron, what's cooking, brother?
Yeah, here we are, the People's Open. Just let's hope the tour can, I think, gain some momentum here. Tiger returns next week, and then we have, the Florida swing leading into the Masters just 2 months away now. So, yeah, I was just thinking, we have to get you to this event one day. I can see you on the 16th green, just having the time of your life. So I think it fits you perfectly. So hopefully we can get you there one day.
My liver appreciates me not attending events like this because even at a normal golf tournament, Noonan and Connor can vouch that I went pretty heavy on the Michelob Ultras out there in Chicago. So Arizona would be a different beast. So we'll have to see what cooks. But did my fair share of shotgunning. Not going to do it on this show because it's middle of the afternoon. So we'll keep it professional over here on the Byron show and go from there. But before we dive into the board, let's chat about the rabbit hole. I've been very intrigued in all the different filters and things that you've been popping out there. And it's been really interesting to see the names that show up and tell the people a bit more about the rabbit hole and where they can find that.
Yeah, so that's at Betsperts Golf. It's kind of our main feature right now that has kind of taken off. And yeah, I mean, just even if you look at it for this week, there's so many different angles you can attack. If you like to build models, so for example, TPC Scottsdale has, the fourth most predictive course history. So you can dig into the course and you can look at any metric you want, you can think of. You got a lot of risk reward holes this week, especially on the back nine. And so one thing I really like to look at is, with all the scoring chances, especially if you're aggressive on the par fives and the drivable par four, we have going for the green metrics, which basically, it could be par five or drivable par fours, when you go for the green, either on the second shot on a drivable par four, or I'm sorry, the first shot, or on the your second shot into a par five. So players who are aggressive on those holes, you can actually look at those metrics and see, whether it's birdie or better percentage, proximity to the hole, how close players get on those drives or second shots. And so really love that. You have, kind of a bomber's paradise this week. You have the longest driving distance on tour, combined with 86% driver usage. And so, we have a driver heavy filter on there where you can look at all the other courses that have a similar high usage of drivers. If you want to look at the distance angle, you have a, desert course with the second highest elevation on tour. And so we have a filter looking at desert courses, mountain courses, with high elevation. And so, yeah, there's just so many different ways, you can look at it. And then, like you said, you have the weather angle this week also. You have some wind on Thursday. Looks like the course is going to be playing a little softer. So I was curious if you have dove into that, if you see any weather edge, PM, AM looking at tomorrow.
I have not, but while we're speaking, I'll pull it up and kind of get the people some information and kind of take a quick look at what we're doing. But talk to me about how you're going to be approaching this week, considering it's going to be wetter. Because I think the typical defense of this golf course is to keep it firm, fast, and dry with quick greens. You think the rain's going to kind of saturate the course a little bit and keep it a little more manageable from a ball perspective. Like I'm just thinking about hole 11 when guys' ball bounces in the fairway and then goes into the water. We could see those balls kind of pitching and stopping before kind of, landing up in the penalty area.
Yeah, I think the course is definitely going to play longer, softer, which obviously means, while Thursday looks to be maybe tougher than usual, just because of, we don't often see wind speeds, last time I checked, 15 plus miles an hour, maybe even gusting in the 20s. So I think Thursday may be challenging, but I think we're looking at Friday into the weekend, usually this course gets tougher as the weekend goes on, just because, the course kind of sits in this valley. And, the desert sun kind of bakes it out, and, conditions get really firm and faster, especially on, on the greens. And so I think we could see the opposite this week where, it gets kind of softer as we go, especially if the temperatures kind of stay on the cooler side. But for me, kind of the big thing this week is I took a look. Ball striking is so key here, and I know we say that every week. But one thing I did is I took the top 20 ball strikers in this field over the past year, and just looking at who shines. And we'll get to some of these guys coming up here, but Max Homa, for example, has the best combination of putting upside and consistency. And if you look who's won here, Scheffler twice, Matsuyama twice, Gary Woodland, Kyle Stanley, Kevin Stadler. These are really good ball strikers who are kind of have a reputation as poor putters. And you have these Poa Trivialis greens that are so pure and relatively flat, and so you've had these poor putters who have had success here. So just so many different things you can look at.
Yeah. I don't know if it was from your side or my side, but I kind of lost you there for a good 25, 30 seconds. All good. We are back and rolling now. Were you talking about Max Homa and Justin Thomas and Scotty Scheffler putting well at this venue? Because I heard you say 4 putters, right? At the end there.
Yeah. I was talking about, just, how it's been, when you look at the past year, Scheffler, Matsuyama, Gary Woodland, those guys, pretty elite ball strikers who have had all the success here. And those guys are not known as good putters. So I just think that's another angle to look at this week.
So let's speak about that, because we've got, 5 or so guys sitting inside the top $9,500 price range there, from Jordan Spieth, Sam Burns, Max Homa, Justin Thomas, and Scotty Scheffler. 2 of those guys in particular are not necessarily renowned as the best putters in the world, but both of them have had incredible success. I think Scotty's 3 of his 7 best putting performances have come at Phoenix. Justin Thomas, I think 4 of his top 22 have come at Phoenix. So they typically putt well here. Do you think, Ron, because they go with Victor and Xander being out, obviously the ownership's going to kind of collect in this top 10K range, because people don't want to just start in the 9s. They'll want to click one of those names. And I'm curious as to your take on whether or not you think these guys are going to continue their putting streak on this venue, or if there's a reason you're going to fade either Scotty and Justin at the top there.
Yeah, so with Xander and Hovland withdrawing, I think it's really hard to fade any of the top 5 players on the board. I mean, when you look at data golf, 35 or 34% of the win equity is within, if you look at the top 5 players on the board here. And so, the thing with playing lineups this week is you can easily fit 2 of them in. And so, obviously Scotty Scheffler fits this course perfectly, as he's demonstrated the last 2 years. He's putted very well here. So, if I were to fade anyone up here, I mean, look, if scoring is lower due to the softer conditions, can we trust him to make enough putts to win, say, at 25 under? And, he has made putts here in the past, but, we're looking at 35% ownership. And so, yeah, I love maybe, not totally fading Scheffler, but, maybe starting lineups with JT this week instead of Scotty. JT checks every box, amazing course history. But, if we're looking at these top 5 guys, I would still say, and, my favorite play up here is going to be Max Homa. And, I know he struggled a bit last week, but he's turned himself into an elite ball striker who has, both the putting upside and the consistency to contend here. And even more so now with kind of a weaker upper tier of players. And so, he's a guy. And I also love Sam Burns this week, just to round out this top group here. I think Burns thrives on these scoreable courses. Was 6th here last year, and he just presents a lot of upside.
Yep. And he's entering the week with some great form as well. So that's looking very nice for Sam Burns. I'll second that selection. One thing I do want to mention about some contest selection going into the week, I've typically played the 150 max 50 cent entry. So, dropping 150 lineups in there. This week, I'm going to do the opposite. I've got about 7 lineups I'm going to be entering in 3 entries and single entries, kind of because of the fact that I'm going to be fading Scotty this week. I think at that price, I've just never got him right. Well, I've always got Scotty right. He's always played well for me, but I've just never got the other 5 guys in coherence with him, So that's been my issue with playing Scotty. And at 11-6 in a field like this, it's kind of top heavy. I'm a little concerned I'm going to be falling in that same trap. So I'm just going to fade him in general. And the reason I want to go to these single entry, 3 entry max competitions is because I feel like people that are playing Scotty won't have as good a chance of connecting those 5 guys. The more options you have to pair up Scotty with 5 other dudes, someone's going to have the optimal Scotty lineup. But in those smaller contests, that's way more unlikely. I'm thinking, a little bit more balanced build with Justin Thomas, Sam Burns to say start my lineups. are going to be the way I'm going to be looking to play those events. So just some game theory stuff there. Who the hell knows if it's going to pay dividends or not, but at least, use that information and make some decisions on your own there. I think if you are playing Scotty, you most likely want to kind of go into the more multi-entry type contest because of what I just said earlier. So moving on down the board, we've got old Matty Fitz here, who went full on psycho mode at Pebble Beach. I think he made millions of birdies in round 2, and then in round 3 played like me after multiple shotguns on a podcast, and it didn't work out well for him on Saturday. We've got Sanjay M also striking the ball quite poorly right now by his standards, not playing as best as he could at events that he typically does play well at. And then we've got Cameron Young also. I mean, what are we really going to get from him? So this bottom range of the 9Ks is kind of rounded out by 2 guys that have got more upside than the other 3, in my opinion, with Wyndham Clark and Seth Thagala, who I'll be playing quite a lot of. Sahith this week, as always. I think, his boom or bust potential is going to be what I really, really like about him this week. So kind of speak to me about the bottom 9s here, Ron. It's a bit of a graveyard of form and, inconsistency.
I couldn't have said it any better. There's tons of question marks in this low 9K range. Sung Jae coming off, 2 poor weeks in a row on courses he typically excels at. Thigala, I do agree with you at 9-1. He's probably my favorite play. Of course, we all remember how close he was 2 years ago at this course. Mm-hmm. But again, he's coming off a miscut 64th, 20th stretch. You got Wyndham Clark coming off a win. But, looks like his ownership, I'm seeing around 16% right now. So I much prefer dropping down to what I think is a loaded 8K range. And what about Cam Young? At 9-2, certainly this course would seem to fit him, and at 7% ownership, so are you saying there's no chance you're jumping on this week?
If I'm playing 7 lineups, I can't do it. I can't get to Cam Young. I need to know that he's going to be there for me and have the chance to win this thing. I mean, I just don't know if he's ever going to win a tournament that's not a major. I think he might be one of the few guys where his first tournament win is a major event. He just tends to play much better in them for some reason, whereas a tournament like this, I don't see him making enough putts to get deep enough down the rabbit hole, so to speak. So we'll leave them alone for the most part, kind of just rolling with Sahith in this range and then kind of loading up on a few guys that we'll chat about here in the 8s, which I think we'll jump right into. JT Poston, Benny Ahn, Minwoo Lee, Tom Kim, Eric Cole, Hideki Matsuyama, Adam Scott. Like, these are all guys that have got some great course history or some great form entering the week. The bottom of that range has got a bit of Ricky Fowler in there, who's got great course history, but seems to have just completely lost his putter. The jailbird has left the building. It's been can name it a jailbreak now. It's not coming back at any time soon, from what it seems. So I will be out on Ricky as my complete fade in this range for sure. Eric Cole will be in the majority of my lineups. Once again, they've priced him in a very affordable price tag for what we're going to be getting from this guy. I think 5 of his last 6 starts have been 21st or better. So, I mean, at $8,500, that's a perfect situation. The guy makes tons and tons of birdies. So I'll be playing him a lot. And then I think Minwoo Lee is an interesting situation here because from what I understand, around the green play kind of is a necessity at this venue. Now, with the weather being a little wetter, they might hit a few more greens because the ball will stay on the greens a bit more. But I still think Minwoo's driving distance and ability to kind of scramble his way around these par 5s or drivable par 4s, I think that's going to kind of play a bit more into his realm. And I have a weird feeling, Ron, and I should have probably checked this out before we started, but Minwoo Lee, I don't know if he's like the best around the greens out of like thick cabbage rough versus, bunkers and tight lie, like collection areas, which we might have a lot more of here, right? So I think he's a way more lethal chipper of the golf ball from those lies that he's got full control of the golf ball of. And I'm kind of looking to exploit that this week. And then Benny On, obviously, going to be very popular. But I think if you build your lineups correctly, you can still fit him in because he's quite an affordable price tag, played well in the past, and is playing, I think 4 of his last 8 starts have been top 5s. So a lot to like about him. Go ahead and rattle off a few names in this range and who you like the most.
So speaking to around the green play, like you said, so digging into like just from the short grass areas, which is another stat you can look up on the rabbit hole. So you have these tight lie collection areas that, you know, when you miss the green, and these are big greens, but you have these collection areas that, you know, misses kind of funnel towards, and you know there are some tight lies here that players have struggled with. And so, yeah, there's some players in this 8K range who are really good around the green. And, you know, I'll start with Ben On. You know, I know his ownership, you know, is going to be higher. I know people are all on board with him. Still has not won a PGA Tour event, but when you look at what he's done and how his game plays here, you know, distance off the tee, one of the best short games. His putter is drastically improved since he went to the broomstick. You know, he's so much better when you really dig in inside of 15 feet, which is a much more predictable range. And so, yeah, he's been threatening the top of the leaderboard for a while now. And I actually looked, and he's got 4 top 4 finishes in his last 8 starts. So, you know, 8.8 is a very reasonable price. Completely agree with you on Minwoo Lee. You know, I've been on him almost every week this year. He's played, you know, so going back to the well with, you know, one of the best young talents in the game here. I think he's kind of flying under the radar this week. And, you know, with his, like you mentioned, his elite ability off the tee, on a course, he can pound away with the driver, combined with, you know, the short game, his putting skills. You know, he's one of my favorite plays this week, whether you're talking about bets, DFS. And then I think Tom Kim, you know, right below him at 8.6. You know, the Shriners comparison here in the desert, you know, obviously he's won that event twice. Scoreable conditions, you know, he's got huge upside on approach and spike ability with the putter. And, you know, I'll kind of take us into the bottom here of the 8Ks, but I think, you know, Matsuyama's a guy I just can't get off of, you know, and then you come this week with the course history being so predictive, combined with, you know, you have a weaker upper tier of players in the field. And I think he's just going to, you know, continue to thrive on this course, you know, that kind of highlights his ability off the tee along with his precise iron game. And so obviously, you know, he's won here twice. He's got 5 top 16 finishes in his last 7 starts here. Then I'll finish with Adam Scott. You know, I think he's
go there, Ron.
Yeah,
I want to ask you about Hideki because I've got a bee in my bonnet about him. I'm going to be fading him completely. What ownership are you seeing Hideki at right now?
Let's see. I'm seeing him at 13% right now.
Okay. Is there a certain threshold you would not play Hideki at?
Yeah, I think there's so much depth in this range that he is kind of approaching that level. You know, I think his ownership probably is completely based on course history because, I mean, he hasn't played bad, you know, but he did have a rough week last week. I don't think Pebble Beach fits him as well as this course does. But yeah, he's, you know, if we start getting above 15%, that's when I'll definitely, you know, probably add more of, you know, an Adam Scott who, you know, to me is another very sneaky play like Minwoo Lee coming in right now. I got Scott at 11%. And so I just think his, you know, he's played a lot of worldwide events recently. He's got 5 straight top 20s, 6 top 10s in the last 6 months. You know, his all-around game has been tremendous. And so, yeah, there's just a lot in this range that, you know, you could easily play, you know, a combined JT and a Max Homa and then take 1 or 2 of these guys. And there's some depth down in the lower ranges as well where you can kind of make that work.
Absolutely. I'm going to be fading Hideki, obviously, because, you know, he's just so irresponsible on the greens. And now I think that can lose him the tournament quite quickly. And just to me, if he finds himself in a pressure situation, I don't, you know, I'm having this internal battle of trying to decide, okay, am I accepting of Hideki finishing top 20? Is that good enough for me? You know, like, I guess that's got to do with ownership. I guess that's got to do with price. But to me, he just hasn't cracked the top 10 in forever, and people just keep pounding him. And to me, it's this weird like Hideki fetish that everyone in the DFS world has, and it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm kind of out on him. I don't know why. We're going to have to chat offline about maybe why you really like him that much, Ron. But I'm just kidding. I do like Adam Scott a lot. I, in fact, have a top 10 bet for him at plus 450. So if you take a look at Adam Scott, some crazy stuff here, Ron, real quick, before we move on down. 37% of the time he's inside the top 10. 40% of the time he's inside the top 20. So this dude, like I almost bet him top 20, and that's to me just wasting value. Like bet the guy top 10 or play him because he's got this immense upside. Like he's always inside the top 10 versus when he's inside the top 20, you know? So interesting stuff there that I noticed about Adam. And then just to wrap it up, yeah, Bo Hassler is basically like Thomas Dietrich, in my opinion, right now. They're both doing this wonderful thing where they're playing great golf, sneaking into the top 10 on a Sunday when they had no business being there, or finding themselves outside the top 10 after being in the lead going into Sunday. So we'll see what happens. But Bo Hostert, to me, at this price, if he's kind of going to be getting some ownership leverage here, I'll take him. And then let's dive into the sevens here. We've got some really interesting names. We've got Alex Noren, Akshay Bhatia, Brian Harmon, Daniel Berger showing up at $7,700 at the same price as Shane Lowry. And then we've got Thomas Dietrich, who, to me, was very lucky and very fortunate that the tournament ended on round 3, because I was expecting a full implosion, explosion, whatever you want to call it, on Sunday for him. So we'll see what cooks there. And then I'll just end up the range here with Christian Bezuidenhout and Emiliano Grillo being two of my very favorite plays. I actually have outrights on both of them this week. I think Bezzy, over the last little while, yes, it's only been 8 shot link rounds, but in the last 24 rounds total, he's third in the field in strokes gained approach. So I know there was a holdout or two on that back nine of the Amex on Sunday, but he's hitting the ball well and he putts well. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing what he can get up to at a $7,400 price tag. He's never really going to be popular until he starts playing very well. People just don't go to him because I feel like they don't think he scores well, but he's been balling out. So I'm big about Bezzy this week, and Griot as well. I think the proximity numbers from 150 to 200 for Griot just suit this golf course to a T, and he's putting so well right now. So if he can keep that putter rolling, that's what wins you tournaments, that upside on the putting side of things. So those are my two favorite plays down in the mid sevens. I'm not necessarily overly thrilled about anyone above them, so I'll just mention those two for the most part.
Yeah, I'll take a little different angle on the top of this 7 range. I think two guys who I really love this week. Brian Harmon, I think for me at least, he's one of the best value plays on the board. He doesn't have elite course history here, but he does have 8 straight made cuts. He's, and I know the OWGR, the rankings, I know they don't mean a whole lot. Okay. But he's still 10th in the entire world. And so, he's done a lot over the past year. And so, I just think at 7,800, you could do a lot worse. I mean, you don't need him to win at this range. So at this price, So I really like Harmon. I think Shane Lowry right below him at 7.7. According to my numbers, he's a top 15 ball striker in this field. And I did a kind of a sub model on just driver heavy courses, and he's the 3rd best player in this field, which was a little surprising to me on these types of courses. And so, hasn't really played here recently, but those would be my 2 top guys here. And then dropping down to the bottom, I do have a whole lot of Ryan Fox love this week. So again, another guy who's, again, 34th ranked player in the world, and again, that's not everything, but it shows that he is a world-class player. He has won multiple events, even though they have been overseas. He simply lacks experience on these PGA Tour courses, that he's never played before, like, TPC Scottsdale. But when you look at his game, on a course that demands total driving ability, players with both distance and accuracy, to avoid the water hazards and kind of the desert waste areas, I think you're going to have a huge advantage this week. And history has proven that. And, Fox is one of the better players in the field off the tee. And he does have kind of an all-around game, struggles with the putter, which kind of fits the mold here, but, good touch around the greens. He has a tendency to spike on approach. And so I think he's going to have a really good shot this week. I took him top 40 at plus 163, might be my favorite bet of the week. But yeah, I think, I got an outright on him at 175 to 1. And, I think he has a real chance to contend this week. And then I'll finish 7,100 Aaron Rai, another guy who kind of, a great showdown player, especially first round, kind of tends to fade in kind of Thomas Dietrich mold on the weekends. But he's a guy, when I ran some numbers, as far as we have a floor ceiling filter on the rabbit hole that looks at, putting. You can look at basically any strokes gain category, but I was looking at just, like I said at the start, ball strikers who have shown an ability to spike, whether on any type of green surface or also on Poa Trivialis. And he's the top. When you look at gaining 3+ strokes putting on Poa Trivialis, he leads this field in a new word I kind of coined, I guess, spikeability. So, I love Rye this week as kind of another, really good play who's going to be a building block for me in that low 7K range.
Cool. I don't mind that. And, if you take a look at, I've got like a full tier of DFS points by dollar, and he's, one of the more affordable golfers for the amount of points that he typically scores for you. So I really like that play at $7,100. I think that's a great value. And Ryan Fox, super scrappy. even including his DP World Tour starts and stuff, he's inside the top 40 about 62% of the time. So I love that plus 167. You said, is that at Bet Rivers?
163. Yep.
Yeah, 163. So I mean the implied probability there is well beneath 50, right? Beneath 40 almost. So I love that edge in that department there for you, Ron. I might just actually follow you along there, but I do have like 14 placement bets this week already, so I'll have to kind of figure my stuff out. But want to chat about one or two other guys that you kind of didn't touch on before we dive into the sixes here. Billy Horschel and Luke List both sitting at $7,100. I think Luke List, he's had a bit of issues with the putter, a little bit here, a little bit there, but I feel like maybe on these kind of greens that have typically rewarded players like Justin Thomas, like Scotty Scheffler, who haven't necessarily putted the greatest, and then come here and have good success. Hideki Matsuyama, another one of them. I think Luke List can be one of those guys. And we know what he can get up to off the tee. We know what he can get up to ball striking. He's pretty elite in those departments when he's really feeling himself. And I think I'm willing to take him at $7,100. I don't think people will be playing him all that much. And then Billy Horschel has some phenomenal course history at this venue. For the price tag that's associated with his name. I also have a first-round leader bet on him at 100-1. So I think he'll be looking to spike after two disappointing starts for me since, finishing top 20 at the Sony. So he kind of has let me down then, but I'm hoping for a little bounce back in that department. I think I'm going to keep riding Billy until he kind of gets us back on track in that department. So like what we're seeing from those two guys. I like the sneakiness, and they can potentially find themselves inside the top 10 at the end of the week. In the sixes, yeah, I'll start off right away. Jake Knapp and Sam Ryder sitting at $6,900. Jake Knapp is tantalizingly enticing. I don't know if those two words are supposed to go together, but neither does his swing speed and ball speed. I mean, just looking at him swing, you'd never believe he gets his ball into the 190s, and it's just scary, beautiful, molasses-like power that he possesses, and it's fun to watch. I hope he's on the TV a lot more than we've seen him in the past. Finished third at the Farmers, which you can argue is a similar driving test in a way. The penalties aren't going to be as severe. You're going to have a cactus or a rocky lie here, but still, like a good driver of a golf ball is going to succeed around this golf course, and he's just elite in that department. So much distance. So I love Jake Knapp, especially after a T3. I mean, that's delightful to see. I got him at like plus 500 for a top 20. So I think that kind of upside is something worth harnessing. And then someone I kind of don't mind playing, especially if they show up late in the player pool for DraftKings, is Alexander Bjork. He was an alternate that made his way into the pool recently and very solid off the tee when it comes to accuracy. He's not going to get it done with distance. He's going to take care of business, making sure he never finds himself getting prickled by a cactus. He's going to be in the middle of the fairway pretty much all the time, and then the rest of his game kind of shines from there. He's a very good iron player, and the short game can spike here and there when he's playing good golf. So he's someone I'm interested to. And then a little bit of Nate Lashley for some reason. I'm kind of intrigued into what he can get up to at $6,800. And then I will kind of hand it off to you because I'm not necessarily super thrilled about too many other guys in this range, as I'll only be playing, 7 lineups myself this week.
Bjork he's in the pool. He's at 6,900 right now, so you can play him. Bobby McIntyre was a guy I was hoping would get added, but I think he's just too late. I was maybe hoping he would. Tonight. He would. Well, we'll say. I don't think they usually add them when they're like the day before. Okay. I think that was like late last night when he got entered. But yeah. Anyway, so there's just a mix of guys here, and again, we talked about this where, you got the course history angle when you get this low. And you also have the course fit. And so I think there are a good number of kind of bomber types who are really strong off the tee, really good on par fives, who are really aggressive. So guys like, a Davis Thompson, who's sitting there at 6,900, who's shown upside. My boy, on similar courses. A Vincent Norman, who, had that run last year. I think he's a really good course fit. And all these guys really not coming with much, typically they don't at this range. But I think these are guys who, even if you play them at 5-10%, I think Norman fits well. JJ Spawn is actually 27th overall in the entire field for me this week. He's at 6,700. And I think why, looking at the numbers, tee to green, he's in the top 35 in each of those three off the tee approach around the green. So he kind of fits that mold that I'm looking for with, a guy who's typically not great with the putter. But so he's kind of my one guy down here that I might be heaviest on. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting names on here, whether even a Jonathan Vegas, who kind of returning from the injury he had last year. He's got a couple events under his belt. He's got the best course history from this range down here. And always good off the tee. And so, he's a guy at 6,500. I think you could do a lot worse than that. But you're just trying to find guys down here. If you can just get a couple of them to sneak through and make the cut and get some upside going into the weekend, that's kind of what you're looking for here.
Yeah. What about Charlie Hoffman? Does he appeal to you at all? Kind of the waste management guy. I mean, he's obviously the recent form, not going to be anything close to what you're looking for, but he typically tends to play well at courses he plays well at, right? And I think this is one of them. He's got like the 37th best course history here for me. And he's $6,500, right?
Yeah. And you see, this is his event for sure. And I guess he's one of these guys, you see this with Webb Simpson. You see these guys who have this awesome course history. And then, I look back at his last 3 years, yes, he did finish 14th last year, but then 67th miscut. And so some of these guys kind of getting up in age a little bit kind of makes me backtrack a little bit, whereas if it was a younger guy, I might be a little more prone. So I'm probably off Charlie this week.
Okay. That's okay. I mean, you don't have to. It's not like he's going to beat you, in the $66,000 range. Yeah. So one other name I do want to mention is Troy Merritt. I just think that his short game is back. He's very good around the greens. He's very good on approach when he's feeling it. He's very accurate off the tee. He's $6,200. And if you're taking a look at his long-term putting stats, they're going to be atrocious because he had the yips. He's done with that now. The yips is gone. Played quite nicely at the Sony. The last 2 tournaments hasn't quite finished out the way you would like, but I'm looking to go back to him at $6,200 if I'm in a pinch for salary down here, who could potentially help me get out of that department. Makes tons of birdies every now and then, and just can get it rolling. He's a top class talent, that's just trying to find his game back again. So yeah, that's going to be it for me. I think we're done with Peter Malnati. He's no longer on the West Coast kind of California type courses. Maybe we'll play him at Riv when he gets there next, because that's a spot that I think he has found an affinity to play good golf at. But till then, we'll have to wait and see. Ron, pick a range, any range. Let's find our dollar to bet against each other. We don't remember who we bet last week. I think it probably means both our guys sucked it up, but I'll go rewatch the show and kind of figure out who owes who a dollar. Pick a range and let's get this dollar on the table, baby.
All right, let's go. We'll go 8,900 and below. And right. you go first.
And you picked the range that's loaded with talent. Okay. I get to go first. Wow, there's so many names in this range, and you're making me go first.
I'll go first if you want me to.
I'll take Benny on at $8,800. Are you going to take Poston or?
No, I'll go right below you. I'll go Min Woolley here. So I think we'll have a good battle of superb around the green players and see what happens.
Let's see what happens. I love it. That's going to be fun to see. Both bombers off the tee, both really good around the green. So we'll see what cooks. That'll be fun. We got the chef versus the Korean steroid user, which is quite fun of a little matchup there. But awesome stuff, guys. Don't forget to go check out the rabbit hole over there at Betsperts Golf. I think is the Vivid seats or the Vivid thing still in play?
Yep, still in play. And Vivid also now on their sites, they also have golf for the first week. So they didn't have golf. So now you could use that $5. So that's all it takes. Just deposit $5 with Vivid Picks, and you could actually use it on golf this week. So, and you just play that $5. A code will be sent to you, and you'll get a free Betsperts Golf subscription for the entire year. So it's a really good deal. And even if you're not in a Vivid state, we have promos for you as well. So send me a direct message, and I'll hook you up.
Awesome stuff, Ron. As always, you can catch me at the Model Maniac on Twitter, doing all my stuff over there. And just remember, folks, this is a week full of fun golfers and tons of course history ownership. So don't forget to pivot your face off this week.